MakeupClasses.com. This is Finding Beauty. Hi, everybody, and Facebook, YouTube. Good morning. Welcome to MakeupClasses.com. Today, we are going to be talking about and working on makeup and hair and talk about fashion of the 1940s. So if you have been following along this week, I started a series of makeup talks and lessons on beauty and fashion of different decades. So today we're up to the 1940s. Now, I have to start out with a little bit of a caveat. This one was really hard for me. Actually, it was impossible when it came to wardrobe. I could not find anything in my closet that really mimicked the style of the 1940s, which I'll get into in a minute and explain why. There really is a reason why that I just don't own anything that looks like from the time period. This was the closest thing that I had. It was really crazy when I was thinking about it yesterday, and then when I went in my closet, I discovered I really don't have anything from that time period. So, okay, so let's paint the picture. 1939 is when Germany started the war, World War II. The United States got involved in 1941. And we're coming out of the 30s. We're coming out of that depression, that recession. Women were home, right? They were asked to leave their jobs because there weren't a lot of jobs. So there was this philosophy that, one job per household. So if you were married to someone that worked and you were working in the government in some type of civic duty, you were asked to go home, basically go home and have a family and raise your children. Well, again, the pendulum swings because now it's 1941 and the US government realizes like, hey, wait a minute, women are really useful. Thanks. Men are being sent to war. Right? There's a draft. Men are being sent to war. And those jobs that they were leaving had to be fulfilled. So women came back into the workforce, but women were doing a lot of more manual labor and a lot of hands-on dirty work. So not only were they doing clerical work and domestic work, but now more than ever, women are getting involved in factory work, which brings us to a lot of our fashion styling. A lot of our styling in the 1940s was evolved around the type of work that women did, the factory work, and also the military style. And that's why, guys, I really didn't have anything in my wardrobe that really is befitting to the 1940s. Okay, so fashion during the war was very simplistic. It was very military style. We had broader shoulders still from the 1930s brought into the 40s, low cut, kind of like a V cut on the shirts and the blouses, long sleeves. And the reason why long sleeves were introduced and really pushed because women were working in factories, and what they were discovering was there were a lot of injuries, a lot of women actually getting killed in these work environments because of the type of clothing that they wore, the shoes that they wore, and also the way they wore their hair. So remember, in the 1930s, the hair was more flowy and a lot of curl. And what was happening was women's hair was getting caught in equipment. Women were being scalped. Their hair was being ripped out. They were getting hurt. Women were wearing their shoes, their high heels to work and getting hurt as well. If they were wearing a dress, that also caused a lot of burns on their legs. So this was the reintroduction of pants. A lot of factory workers wore pants, and we see that with Rosie Riveter, right? I believe her name was Naomi Parker, the real woman that picture was taken. She was in like a jumpsuit. So clothing was very military, very militant looking, plain colors. You had your black, your blue, your white. I'm pretty sure there was green, but there wasn't a lot of color. That pink that was introduced in the 30s, that disappeared. And the reason why color was so simplified and streamlined is because the chemicals used to color clothing was conserved for the military effort. It was a very pro-American time, right? Everything was a lot of propaganda pushed towards women. The clothing was very militant looking, very simple. There were rules passed and rationings passed in clothing factories where you couldn't have fabric on fabric. So the US government actually limited the amount of accessorizing on clothing, how many pockets you could have on clothing, what colors could be used in the dyeing of fabric. So it was really like a uniform in the early to mid 40s. Everybody kind of looked the same, but women went for it because the government told women that by you following these rules, these fashion rules, you were very patriotic. You were pro-American. You were pro-war. You were for your husband or boyfriend that just went off to war. So women are entering the workplace. They're also having a difficult time raising their children because there was a huge boom in marriage during that time. Men were going off to war, so there were a lot of fast engagements, quick weddings, and also a lot of pregnancies then as well. So the term double duty came into effect where women were taking night shifts, which were very dangerous because then they were with their children during the day. And they were just completely overworked and exhausted. So the clothing was designed, it was very simple. It was like a uniform. It was go to work, come home, take care of your family. Hair, now I didn't do that great of a job. I whipped this together in just a few minutes. Hair had to be protected from the factory equipment. So here we have, the twisting and pinning of hair. The hair in the back, I just want to show you. This was a popular style where they would roll it underneath and they would put some type of, I forget the name. It was like a hair net. We saw a lot of that. Hats, hair nets, ribbons, any type of hair adornment was super popular, not only because it was part of the safety, it was part of the costume going to work, but it also carried over into life outside of work. Women were used to, I guess, wearing some type of protective hat or net on their hair to protect their hair. But it was also their signature way to look a little different, to feel a little glamorous, because the clothes were just so simple. Which in fact, the government actually had some propaganda on hair adornments where they, insisted on women having, different hats, different colors of protective gear to make them feel when they're at work, feel really, good about themselves. Makeup was starting to, another thing about fashion that's really, really important. It was mend your clothing, mend and fix what you already own, okay? Because there's a war going on and you have to conserve what you own. But a lot of your fashion icons, a lot of your fashion designers in France, because of the war, because of Germany invading France, the fashion houses closed down, and a lot of them were migrating over to the United States. So we had some designers, and also to other parts of the world as well. So fashion, the prints, the actual prints that you would get from France to make your own clothing. I think that's the right word that I'm using. Really were very hard to find. So what you had now was a lot of American designers creating the knockoff prints of the French designers. Remember the 20s and the 30s, we still had so much French influence. That's where a lot of our design came from, all those fashion houses in France. And now all of those fashion houses, guess what, guys? They're moving to New York. And New York now starts to become the fashion capital of the world, and also Hollywood as well. So we still are going to the movies. We're a lot of patriotic films, right? We see that very militant, broad clothing, long sleeve, slim waist, plain colors in our movies as well. All right. Nylons also. There's so much with fashion. Nylons, silk, I should say silk pantyhose were now banned. They weren't making them anymore, and they were asking women to launder their silk pantyhose and donate them. They had like drop-off boxes, and those silk pantyhose were used to make parachutes for the men at war, for military parachutes. So it was a sacrifice and your patriotic duty to dress very simply and to dress militant, because you were supporting your man overseas at war. We had more makeup evolve. Let's get into the makeup. We now have more selection of color. Warmer tones were, I forgot my mirror. Oh, well, I'm going to have to just do it on here on the screen. Warmer foundation. Okay. Because, back in the 20s, if you were pale, that was a sign of money. If you were darker, that was a sign that you worked outside. If you had any type of tan, it looked like you were someone that worked outside. So if you were inside, you had money and you didn't have to work with your hands, that sort of thing. But now tanning, which was considered very leisurely, a leisurely event, like who has time to lay out and soak in the sun when you're working a night shift in the factory and then coming home to a lot of children to take care of, it was unheard of. So to have a little bit of color was really the sign of the times. Also because that they didn't have pantyhose, a lot of women couldn't afford it, even though nylon was a new fabric that was introduced into America. And also cottons, there was a lot of cotton blends, cheaper fabrics were starting to be made. Women would use their pan stick, which was the new makeup by Max Factor. It was a stick roll-up, thicker foundation, and still using their pancake, and they're putting it on their legs to give themselves a little bit of tan. I also saw photographs of women taking, I'm assuming their eye pencil, and drawing that seam line up the back of their leg to look like they had pantyhose on. Pretty cool. Oh, and there was a little bit of a joke that, if you had all this color all over your body, your legs especially, don't get caught in the rain because it would just melt away. All right. So foundation was a little darker. Now we have the introduction of, let me see if I could do this without a mirror. Now we have the introduction of the arched brow and brown liner. Again, women still use the same liner pencil on their brows. And so it was a little thicker in the front, but still super duper thin. I hope I did that all right. A nice arch, and we're going to see more of an arch in the 1950s. So it was a little thicker in the front and then a higher arch. All right, eyeshadow, okay? Whatever you had in the 30s was what you were going to conserve and use sparingly, you know, if you had a little bit of blue eyeshadow left, because the tins, the containers that makeup was actually stored in, where, you know, your makeup tins, your compacts, that was also low to no production of those as well. So the little bit of makeup that you had is what you used. Brown colors and beiges were all the rave, because I'm just going to dip into some beigey matte color. You'll notice in movies of the 1940s, it looked like they had no eyeshadow on whatsoever. And again, this was done with your finger. There were no makeup brushes. You know, I was thinking about what my friend Lisa said yesterday about when, you know, in the 70s, she didn't even have makeup brushes. And I thought about it too, that I didn't get my own makeup brush set probably until the 90s. So brushes, yeah, were very expensive. Sometimes they still are to this day. It depends on the brand. So it was beigey eyeshadows, usually one color, very simple, applied with the finger. They also use some ivory color as well. And it was all matte. There was no shimmer. There was no glitter. It was, you know, you were patriotic. You were sacrificing. You looked very plain and simple, which brings me to the next topic of plain and simple. Now, because you are, you know, going to work and you're working really hard and you're making sacrifices in your wardrobe and you're donating things, you're also committing to volunteer time for the military effort. You still have a lot of sex appeal girls. And this is where, you know, military men, they're going off to, you know, overseas, and you still want to look super sexy. And one of the things that we notice in body type, again, it was still in the movies, still the tight waist, still, you know, the bust was in and the hips. And we start to invent this pinup girl style. Also, they use, let me do the eye pencil as well. They used very thin, you know, they were conserving this. So sometimes they didn't wear eyeliner because they wanted to save it for their eyebrows. So I'm just going to put a little bit here because it was very thin, and it was that doe eye, that fresh eye. In movies, they were still using that cake mascara, a lot of it, and that was applied with a brush. So the more mascara, the better, because you wanted that wide-eyed, open look. Perfect. Now I'm just using regular mascara, of course, to achieve that look. So the real sex appeal was with the lip. And we noticed that the lip color was still red, The blush color was still pink. Again, you wore very, very little. It was really cheeky and then brought back. So a lot of the 30s was carried over into the 40s because of the lack of supplies. So if you had any bit of makeup, you were conserving it. Also, the government, had, I guess, put some type of announcement out that you should buy in bulk. Sound familiar? You should buy in bulk and have all of your supplies because supplies were running out. So some women did buy a little bit of extra with their, with their makeup, but who had the money to do it, right? You were, trying to take care of your family as well. But then in other cases, if you didn't have that many children, or if you were childless, you did have maybe a little bit of extra money to buy a lipstick here and there. New product introduced. Elizabeth Arden also had a lipstick. Everybody still wore the red, but she repackaged the whole red lip by calling it Victory Red. So a lot of patriotic colors in clothing. You had blue, right? And then you had the red lip. We see that in a lot of propaganda ads, the red and the blue and the white. So lip pencil was the new product. And you wanted to make your lips bigger. Now, in the 30s, we had a slightly smaller bottom lip and an overextended corner, right? And that was just done with lipstick. But now we have lip liner. Now, this one's kind of maroonish. I didn't really have a pure red. But what you did, girls, was you went along your lip line slightly outward because you wanted your lips to look bigger. So here we go. I hope you guys could see that. It's hard for me to see in this one, so I'm using my Instagram, my phone. So you went a little above. Gosh, I'm missing my mirror right now. So you went a little above and you wanted your lips to look so much bigger. And of course you used your bright red. And I'm going to try to melt that together. There we go. Yeah, now we're getting a look. So big lips, because we want to look super feminine. In fact, I was reading yesterday that the government actually mandated women to wear lipstick in certain situations in certain factories because it made them just feel better and more feminine. So the lipstick was the big thing. It was the thing that you didn't leave your house without wearing. Lots of big red lip with the lip liner. And what did you do, girls, after you wrote your guy a letter overseas? Well, you kissed the paper. This is where we first see the red lips on the letter sent off to the military, which was really, really sweet as well. Now, as we progress into the 1940s, the look started. Makeup really remained the same, but fashion took a big turn. Once the war was over in 1945, things started to open up. Some women went back to the house. Some women were asked to back to the house. I don't know what that means, Lisa. SWAK, swag. I don't know what that is. Sorry. If you can explain that. So a lot of women went back into the home, but that also caused, women to start thinking like, wait a minute, I really like going to work. I like making money. So some women stayed. They stayed working, and they just loved it. They enjoyed it. 1947, we have what is called the New Look by Christian Dior, where he took that, oh, there we go, sealed with a kiss. Yes, that's where the expression came from, because we had our big red lips, mwah, and we kissed our letter. And that was a big symbolic thing that happened in the 1940s, which is really cool. In fact, I should have brought it. I was going to take it out to show you guys, but I made I painted a bowl, a pottery bowl, when I got engaged. And it was a little crazy. The art instructor thought it was a little risque, but I did it anyway. I put red paint on my lip, and I kissed around the bowl. All, it has like my lip prints all over this piece of pottery that I have. And I gave it to my husband as an engagement gift. But yeah, sealed with a kiss. Yeah. Very, very nostalgic, and just a beautiful symbol of love. Right. So 1947, Christian Dior swung that pendulum and said, you know what, girls, no more military looking clothing that's very tight and slimming and, boxy. It was very boxy. He started using more fabric, which again was not used because of the military effort to conserve on products and dyes and just factory time, right? Those factories were now that created these things were now being replaced with more of military effort jobs, if that makes sense. So we start to see movies in the late 1940s of just fabulous gowns, lots of layering of fabric, ruffles, lace, just a lot of puffiness in the skirts, that sort of thing. So the pendulum starts to swing, and things start to change for women. And women are really battling equality. We went back to work. We helped you guys out. And now we're really on a mission, which is awesome. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's makeup and hair lesson, and a little bit of an American history lesson on the 1940s. I will see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and we're going to work on the 1950s. I can't wait to learn all about it and do this along with you as well. Have a great day, guys. Mwah. I'm sealing it with a kiss. Bye, everybody.